Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Katie Chuba from the Hartland Area Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate you today joining us for our Tuesday Zoom at noon. Today is May 12th, and the Chamber has been initiating these every Tuesday and Thursday. The purpose of the Zooms at noon is to engage with our community leaders and area businesses to discuss what's going on and how we can help each other. We have some businesses that have, it's been nice, they have best practices or tips and tricks and things that they want to communicate to the community as we try to adapt and get back to what everyone's calling new normal. I'm kind of just rambling here for a few minutes on purpose, just as I watch our attendees number climb. We do have quite a few people that have registered for today's webinar, so that's exciting. So they want to hear from an intricate community piece, which is our schools and our community education. So again, thank you for joining us on today's Zoom at noon. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. It's a little bit afternoon. If you're just joining us, thanks again for tuning in. We're hope that it'll shed some insight and maybe answer some of your questions you may have. We're going to have some good discussion with our superintendent from Hartland Consolidated Schools, Mr. Chuck Hughes, as well as Michelle Otis, who is the director of our community ed. So I'm gonna just have you say hi, Chuck. So thanks for joining us, and say hi, Michelle.
Hi, guys.
And also joining us is the Hartland Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Director President from the Detroit Polo Club, Emmeline Wheaton. So I think you have to say hi for your picture to actually show up.
Hi, guys.
So both Emmeline and I are current parents of kids in the school district. So it's kind of nice because I can see today's discussion from not only the business perspective and our partner perspective. The schools have partnered with the chamber on quite a few initiatives, but also from the parents' perspective. And I will give you a heads up, Chuck, we do have, I did get a few emails with some folks asking questions. So I'll try my hardest to get through those questions, and hopefully as you kind of share what's going on with the schools, you may answer some of those. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Chuck. Give us an update.
Oh, goodness. You know, the problem with giving you an update is that it could change in 5 minutes. It could change in a half an hour. It all depends on what's going on.
True.
So I know that there's a lot of anxiety out there in regards to what's the school district doing in regards to what does next fall look like? What does graduation ceremony? What are you planning? How are things going to end for the school year? Things like, when am I going to be able to get my child's stuff out of the locker, right? Interestingly enough, by the way, this is an interesting thing. We have 2,000 lockers at the high school. We emptied them. We put everything from the lockers into a garbage bag. 53 lockers had something in them. Who would have thought?
Wow.
53 out of 2,000 lockers had something in them. That was an interesting, I'm like, that was surprising to me, but I guess the students are using lockers.
Yeah, I will share with you my own daughter, who is, well, really technically now a junior. She never used her locker because I think it was so far away from her classes. She carried this 50-pound backpack with her wherever she went. So I think there's a lot of kids that do that from what I'm hearing. So it's all good. It's all good. So anyway.
Let's deal with seniors first. Obviously, as a senior, it's I feel like I jinxed it, to be honest with you, because last year at graduation, I said to the graduating class, hey, nobody will ever beat you ever again with 9 snow days. And here we are. So I think I did it to ourselves. I'm sorry, everybody. You know, I shouldn't have said that back in June of 2019. So this senior group has definitely beat the number of what we would call Act of God days for sure. We are working with our high school, Miss Gregory, and the high school administrative staff is working on a plan to do something special for our seniors. I don't want to necessarily give a lot of details. I just want people to realize we are working on something to make it special in regards to some type of ceremony. I shared this at the Board of Education last night for our senior class. We're doing some other things. Midweek, we should get a special announcement from Ms. Gregory on what to look for out in the community and what's going to happen with that. So we are cognizant that we need to do something for our seniors. We also want to be thoughtful and deliberate in how we do that for our seniors. So that is, that includes the honors night. I've been talking with Mrs. Empey about what that's going to look like for honors night as well. So more information to come fairly soon on that. As far as school in the fall, I don't have an answer for you. I really don't. It really is going to depend on what's happening in the world around us come fall.
I mean, I guess just kind of trying to keep this conversational. Do you think that you're going to wait till June or July? I mean, by fall, it's kind of too late, right? I mean, there has to be some discussion of, okay, maybe in June we'll start talking about what the plan looks like or what school looks like. Is there any little bit of...
I can tell you what we are talking about right now is what would it look like if we had to social distance when school starts? So if school started and the law of the land was that you have to have a social distance component into schools, that doesn't look like filling the school up with all students, at least.
How do you keep 5 kindergartners social distance? I mean, really, when I think of that, and I'm sure as all parents, I mean, I don't have kindergartners anymore, but, or even first or second graders, how do you tell little kids, you got to stay 6 feet from your friend? Right. I think it's my personal opinion is it's almost nearly going to be an impossible task.
Yeah, but we'll have to have a plan to make it work to the best of our ability, right? You also have to have the issue of what parents aren't going to want to send their children to school because they're not going to feel comfortable with that. And what will it look like if social distance looks like part of the class in school on each day and part of the class at home? And we know, for instance, that we've provided engagement activities right now for our seniors and our K through 12 students, including our pre-kindergarten kids are getting stuff through Michelle's program, trying to find engagement activities for them. So next year, if we were to go all online, for instance, or at least a blended concept for social distancing, that's going to have to be more rigorous. So we're concentrating right now on allowing our teachers to figure this out. Some people ask, why didn't we have a plan right away? Well, here's the deal. Teachers didn't go to school to learn how to be online educators. This hit them very quickly, and they've had to adjust. And I think if you look at what's been offered, it's getting better and better. And by fall, when we figure out where we have to provide PD to our teachers, where our platforms are going to ride, it might be one platform for K3, an easier click and go type platform, and maybe Google Classroom for everybody else. But our teachers will get better at it. They'll get better at providing more rigorous opportunities for kids, more learning. Right now, I'd like to say that a lot of the responsibility for advanced learning really is on our kids right now, unfortunately. The teachers can provide, but students have to take the opportunity to engage in that and learn from it. So we're doing the best we can. It may not be perfect. It is kind of messy. It's hard for you as parents out there. It's hard for, some of you are like, please take my kids back. I get it, right? But we have to do what's best and what we know how to do. We can't do something we don't know how to do. So we hope that there is patience there. Depending on how that progresses, I guess we'll see what the fall brings. But yeah, we have been talking about it, and it would be silly to say, here's what we're thinking right now, when that could change up through June. And I think when we're ready, when we feel confident that we think we know what it's going to look like, we'll make sure the community knows what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about how all the teachers are learning these tools and navigating, and the school district's not alone. I mean, every business that I talk to and every business that I have a conversation here at the chamber, I mean, we are adapting. We're adapting to Zoom. We're adapting to new technologies and platforms so we can be successful, and the school's doing the same thing. So I guess kudos to you and kudos to the administration and all the teachers for trying to adapt just like the rest of us. I mean, that's the reality, right? So
it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this. Talking with a friend last night who manages a plant, and all of his work is all of a sudden at home, and he's still managing, and there's still people in the plant doing the work that has to be done. And I said to him, do you see working from home pretty regularly now after this is over? And he said, yeah, I think it's forced us to realize that we can do this and be productive and be efficient in the work that we do. Joke around here, to be honest with you, is I've got 5 hours a day that I'm spending in the office and getting things done with no interruption. No telephone calls, people aren't calling me, with nobody coming through the door because there's a problem. And guess what? I can get my work done in 5 hours versus 10. So it is different.
yeah, I do miss you stopping into the chamber.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
and I agree with you. I know I've walked into Michelle's office and your office, and yeah, you do. You're using your time differently, right?
Right.
So,
what other questions?
So I'd like to just kind of turn it over to Michelle for a second. We'd love to hear from her. We'll come back to you, Chuck.
All right.
I did want to let everyone know that's listening, if you do have a question on the bottom part of your screen in the Q&A, go ahead and type a question in and we can try to get to those. We do have some questions that I'd like to ask you, Chuck, but Michelle, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm trying to remain optimistic, and every day it gets just a little tougher to find my optimism. But we are doing our best. We have tried to go to the virtual world as well, which is somewhat difficult in a recreational environment. But on a good note, community life was still produced, and we do plan on at this point producing it again for our back to school issue. So if there are any chamber members that are looking to advertise, please know we're still doing it. An email to community life at Hartland Schools, and we can get you involved in that if you haven't already been interested in advertising with us. So we would look forward to that. Virtually, we've done some virtual dance lessons. So we've had some pretty good participation where our dancers that are in our dance program still get instruction from our teachers. And, we've had to mute some people. Like I saw Katie muted me not that long ago, but we have to mute some kids, but it's been working out as good as I think you can expect it to be. We are still hoping to have a recital. Time will tell. We have it planned for the middle of July, so we'll see. Gymnastics, I think our staff is doing a great job of staying engaged. It's tough because you don't have spotters, you don't have, most people don't have the equipment, especially if you're high level on our teams, but I think our staff has been doing a great job to keep our kids engaged, which is, I think, the most important thing we can do right now as a community ed department is keep kids and parents engaged. So I think they've done an awesome job, and we are hoping to get back in the gyms. We're getting our carpet cleaned next Friday and sanitized. So we're hoping to, be able to open, and time will tell. Preschool, we had an opportunity for our preschool parents to opt in to virtual instruction or out. About half of our parents opted in for their children. So we use an app called Seesaw, and we also use Zoom. We actually US mailed the project materials so we could still build projects together where it required a little bit of something that we didn't think you had at home. So anybody who opted in got this package of materials and with dates on it as to when we were going to do it. And I think it's actually really awesome to see the kids light up when they see their friends, even virtually. So they're getting used to it more and more. And these 4-year-olds, like, as Chuck has kind of alluded, we might start their school partially having to be virtual. So I think it's a good learning platform for them to maybe be prepared for what's going to come. Hopefully not, but maybe. The governor put out her Michigan State Smart Plan. And I've been analyzing that thing because my goal is to really be able to get our daycare operational. I don't think we can get people back to work without having a place for their kids. So we have been working tirelessly on what that's going to look like, what kind of procedures we have to have in place for drop off. And it's just the part of it is just so weird to think that we, parents are not going to be allowed to come in our building. Like, it's just so different, which I'm sure everybody is doing different things. But we're actually making a drop off outside. We're going to meet the parent. We're going to tempt the child. We're going to make sure they have their mask on if they're over 2. So we've kind of sent out some emails like, can you start having your child wear a mask to kind of get used to it? Because I don't think it's going to be an all day thing, but I think there will be times when they're going to have to wear a mask in our building. We're going to eat in our classrooms. We're going to share the playground, and a lot of our field trips that we planned for summer have already been canceled because we were going to outdoor pools, or we were going to a water park or Domino's Farms, or big places where we've already know it's just not going to be the reality. So we're preparing. We are hoping that we can get started. It's not been approved yet. It's in phase 5 of the governor's plan, and so we'll see when that can start. We're waiting for our regulatory agency, Lara, to release what we're going to really have to do. Right now, we're just kind of going with what common sense we think we're going to have. But their policies will come out with, here's what you have to have in place. So we're preparing ourselves for that. So yesterday we had an Optimist Club meeting, and we have a great group of people that are optimistic. And I read a couple things about our creed, and I just want to share them quickly. So the Optimist Creed: promise yourself, and there's 3 things that I think are super important for all of us: to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, to look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true. And last part of this is to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. So I'll leave that with all of our business people and everybody on here to really try to stay optimistic.
Thank you much, Michelle. We really appreciate the kind words and the update, kind of what you're doing and trying to navigate like the rest of us, right? So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
We do, and my mind's going 100 miles an hour. I have lots of questions for you guys, and a lot of these are coming from the parent in me. Chuck, you had talked a little bit about maybe kind of entertaining the thought of you're in school and then you're having virtual education, and as a parent, I think, okay, how does that affect? I have to go to work, and Michelle, you touched on it too. So what about you have these parents that are really relying on school to keep their kid all day so they can be at work. I know you don't have the answers, but I think it's just a good topic of discussion. Like, what do we think that looks like? I don't have the answers. I don't know if you have the answers, but we're talking about that whole blended, if my kids are home 2 the days out of the week, or maybe half the day, and I have to work, that I don't know. I think it's a hot button.
Yeah. I think, again, I think it's going to be guidance from the state of Michigan on the expectations of schools. And then, of course, the expectations of the local community. I have to assume that the state will create guidance that creates flexibility, right? They want the local education service agency, the local educational agency to make their decisions based on what's best for their community. So I don't know how to answer the question of, well, if my child's in school 1 day a week or 2 days a week and then they're home, who's going to stay home with them? I don't know how to answer that question.
Can I answer that, Chuck? I think we should just sign them up for latchkey, and we're going to just keep them all day.
There you go.
We're looking at that.
Maybe we'd have to do that. Then again, you have to find a place for them too, Michelle, right? Like where would we put those students? Would we have to compromise one program to create a program to house those students? And what would it look like? So all of those things will have to be considered based on the guidance that we get. Certainly, hopefully, crossing my fingers that we just go back to school full time in the fall. And then of course, the next question is, what happens when Chuck comes down with Corona and he's at the high school? And what happens? What are the protocols for what has to happen for 14 days or whatever that number might be? And so how do we switch from plan A to plan B to plan C seamlessly? All of those things will have to be considered. And again, those are really tough questions that I just don't have the answer for.
Have you considered, and this came in as a question, which I thought was good. Have you considered Or have you? I mean, I haven't seen anything, but doing a parent survey. And this is the question: has a parent survey been thought about to see how many parents are willing to send their kids 100%, or those who would choose 100% online option? Perhaps knowing what the desires are of the parents would help the district plan.
So I haven't done it for the population in general. Michelle, maybe you can talk a little bit about your survey of who would bring their kids back to daycare and who would come to your normal summer school program numbers versus how many said they would like to come.
Yeah, so we did do a survey of our population, just saying if we were able to open sort of tomorrow, do you need us? Would you come? And about the daycare numbers, so the baby to 4-year-old, not in school yet, was pretty lean. They were like, we're gonna wait and let you get open and see how it goes before we bring our little ones. Now the before and after, so the kindergartners through 6th grade that we're licensed to serve, we had about 55 responses, so of about 150. So you can see about a third of our population that said, we would love to start and we would start tomorrow if you could get open. So we're looking at opening if we can, when we can open, with about, that 55, 60 as of right now. And I think it's all going to depend on, how this goes, really. If we can get open and everything's positive, I think we'll just keep growing. And which is kind of what some of the parents also said, is that they would definitely, if we get open and everything goes good and more people go back to work, they would definitely feel comfortable sending their children. So I think there's some that are just in that wait and see type situation. So about a third said we would come, and we'd come right now.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that helps with some insight. And just talking about surveys, I just want to share with everyone that's listening. I'm going to do a little plug for a consumer survey. And, I really think that this consumer survey, it's on our Facebook page, it's also on our website, but it's a real-time survey about you as a consumer, about going into public places, going to public events, going into the local restaurant, where your comfort level is. And that data that we get from that's a county-wide initiative, just so you know, but I think that would be useful for the schools. I mean, this is kind of like, it's not school geared, but data to have, kind of know what the general public is feeling anyway. And there might be some questions on there that you could, adapt to your own organization if you're doing, a survey to your parents or customers. So just heads up, I'm kind of a survey girl, and I think if you do get a third response, that's actually good, Michelle, just so you know. so statistics say. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that information, Michelle. That's helpful. So another question that's coming in, idea about opening facilities for COVID-19 safe programs. Fields, question mark. I'm hoping, Michael, that your question is fields like, I'm thinking like sports fields, but I could be wrong. Like, I mean, you have football teams that touch each other. You have, cheerlead. I mean, my daughter's a cheerleader. It's like they are constantly touching each other. So again, I don't know if you have the answers, but has there been any thought behind that as far as like athletics go?
Yeah. Right now, a couple things. One, we are members of the Michigan High School Athletic Association. So really, we will take their guidance. They determine what sports go and what sports don't, right? They're the ones who run the tournaments. So really, we'll look to the Michigan High School Athletic Association in regards to what goes and what doesn't. They'll determine that. And then, of course, we have to wait for guidance from the governor. We have to wait before we can even begin talking about opening in fields and whatnot until after the stay-at-home issues are released, how many kids can be in one place. When we first went into stay-at-home, we had students showing up at our soccer field, for instance, and in big numbers. And we had to say, hey, right now we ask you not to be here. So we have to follow that guidance. And until that's lifted and until the Michigan High School Athletic Association says we're a go, we're just in a holding pattern.
It's funny that you say that. When it was nice last weekend, I was driving down, I'm 59, and I had run a couple errands, and it didn't feel any different. I saw crowds of people 3 feet from each other, talking, having conversation. I mean, in your own opinion, do you feel that, I mean, people are going to use their common sense, or do you feel that people are really going to adhere to all these set in stone social distancing rules?
I guess I would answer that with a question back. Do you think people will adhere to all the policies and rules?
No, I'll be honest. No, I have no problem. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm already seeing it.
I'll give you an example. Let's just say we decided to have a graduation ceremony and we asked everybody to stay 6 feet apart from each other. And we had the kids lining the track 6 feet apart. The emotional component of a graduation ceremony, what chance do we have to keep everybody from hugging each other? And I don't know that would be there, right? So I think you have to be concerned, will people follow the guidelines? Maybe not.
Well, I think that's the key word, Chuck. They're guidelines. I mean, you can't, it's not, they're guidelines, you know, and you have to give people credit for using their own judgment, I suppose, you know. So, we have another question.
I'd like to think that that's okay until something happens at the school and then all of a sudden it's pointed at me that it's my fault because I didn't make sure everybody followed the guidelines, right? Easier said than done.
Uh-huh.
The buck does stop in this chair, by the way, right? So that chair right there.
How do you control crowds? I mean, we're in similar position as organizations with our customers. Chamber, we do some civic events, and what if something happens at our event and then the fingers point at the chamber? Well, I got at a chamber event, you know, so we have to have a log of all the people that come to the chamber office door, and you know, we're implementing things too. I don't know, just food for thought, throwing it out there.
And it comes down to, I really think, like, do you have a responsibility to enforce it? You know, who has a responsibility to enforce the guidelines? So that's what it's going to come down to. You can put your guidelines out there, or the state puts the guidelines out there, and you repeat them to your customers, and then who has the true obligation to enforce them? That's the tough.
Yeah, you could go into the whole who's playing God and morality thing too. So a lot of gray area, right?
Yeah.
A lot of gray area. So here's a question for you. I'm just going to read it. What is the reasoning behind not offering high school students the opportunity to use their second semester grades on their transcript? That's part of it. Given the number of surrounding districts like Brighton and Hall that have implemented the choice between taking a grade versus a pass-fail, do you feel that our students are at a disadvantage because of this decision? So Chuck, can you shed some light on that, please?
Yeah. First of all, I would say that I don't believe that our students are in any bad situation. I don't believe that the colleges, universities, or anybody like that are going to take an opportunity to hinder our students' opportunities simply because we chose a pass and fail. We chose a pass and fail, bottom line, because of an equity issue. We feel very, very confidently that every child has a right to a free and appropriate public education. And the fact is, Katie, as I'm watching you right now, your internet is sketchy. You are in and out, in and out, in and out. And we have students that have been reported to us that do not have internet capability. We have students that may not have the support mechanism at home to get their work done and do work for a grade and have guidance when the teacher's not available. We have a lot of different issues. And I will tell you, as a high school principal for 12 years at Hartland High School, there were times when lots and lots of scenarios were thrown at me because if this would have played out, I'd have been tops in the class, or if this would have played out, I'd have been a top 10. This would have played out, I'd have had a better GPA. And yeah, that's a lot of what ifs. But here's what it comes down to. Equity for all students to have the same opportunities to be successful and have the same opportunities to earn the grades that they were earning or would earn by the end of the year. You might have had students that were earning a B on March 12th. But given some time and effort and encouragement and feedback from the teacher, they could earn that A, no problem. So by saying it's what you had on March 12th as you could accept as your grade, what about those students that could have had that opportunity? And I don't think we want to leave those kids behind. I think that what we have to do is say, how do we make sure every student's on a level playing field? And the level playing field is what your GPA and what your grades were in the first semester. We'll have it recorded on transcripts, what the pass-fail looks like, that there'll be a designation for COVID-19. But what we tell the parents is, print out your March 12th progress report. Progress reports came out on March 12th. Lucky for Hartland, we started early. And we were basically 3/4 of the way done with the school year on March 12th, where other districts were not. So we started earlier, got first semester done by Christmas. We were halfway through the second semester. So we have that grade. You can capture that grade on your progress report. We'll be happy to attach that to the transcript when you apply for colleges or wherever you choose to go after high school, and they can see where you were at that point in time. But the fact is that we've chosen pass-fail. The fact is that our counselors have done a really nice job reaching out to the universities. We've done a lot of research on what universities are doing, and pass-fail is consistently not going to be an issue for the university and the colleges that students choose to go to, or scholarships. So I feel confident that it's the right decision. I know that Brighton was doing credit, no credit. I know that Howell chose to do grades. I get that, but that was a local decision. Talked with our legislators on Friday afternoon as well. They asked the same question. Why is it that each school district got an opportunity to choose? I again explained our equity issue and that the local district has an obligation to take care of its local students. And we believe wholeheartedly that reason, respect, and responsibility says every child is entitled to the same opportunities. And those opportunities manifest themselves by the end of the school year, not just at March 12th. So that's why we chose to do it. And we feel very confident and comfortable that that's the right decision.
Thank you, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
When you were speaking, one of the questions came in and said, will it say that students did not have a choice and were told they could only do pass or fail?
No, the transcript won't say that. There'll be a designation for COVID-19 that the universities will see that the district chose to use pass-fail.
Okay, perfect. And I mean, you got to give the universities, they know what's going on. It's not like they're in the dark, right? They know what's going on. Right. So they're being a little more adaptive, if you will, and understanding, right?
My son just graduated from law school this weekend, finished his final exam and got his notification. He's just graduated, and the university, the law school, is using pass-fail. That's his grades, pass-fail. And so he understands that, and he'll move on.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way.
Thanks to him, right? Congratulations to him.
Won't stop him from being an attorney, right?
I hope not.
Good question. Milford also choosing. So will colleges look at Hartland as a whole versus Milford? What about opportunity? Choose, work hard to reveal grade. We have inevitably created a high school student situation to not do work at all minimal. So an effort to have equity, we have created a non-learning 2 months.
I would say probably the issue there is that some people feel like because we've done pass and fail, it's given no incentive for the high school students to continue on their educational path. And what I'd say is those students that have chose to engage are engaging and learning. Those students that are taking AP classes are continuing because they're taking their tests now and for the next couple of weeks. Those students that were doing dual enrollment classes are continuing because they have to finish their classes for the college. So I think it's really, at this point in time, it's what is your willingness to put in the effort to engage in those studies, knowing that, yeah, we said that we're going to cut off grades as of March 12th. Unless you were failing, then the teacher would reach out to you and say, here's an opportunity to pass. And we've done that with all of our students. But we didn't have the capacity to continue to say, we'll give you these extra opportunities to improve your grade. Remember, we're learning how to do this work. And there's a lot of stress involved in learning how to do this work. There's a lot of stress involved in the teachers, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with me or not, whether you have empathy or not. The fact is, how about those teachers that have their children at home and they're trying to help them as well as continuing to educate our children. So there's a stress factor there that we felt that we had to be empathetic about. And empathy is one of our EAGLES concepts for social emotional learning. Let's be empathetic. Let's take the time to do it the best we can. And that's what we're doing. And you don't have to agree with it, but we, again, trust that we feel very confident. And maybe you don't like the word trust. I would say trust us as professionals that we've talked about it, we've digested it, and we've made a thoughtful and deliberate decision on how we're going to approach this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Chuck, and just, you know, from a parent perspective, you know, my kids are good students, and I'm sorry, I feel like my internet is unstable a little bit, so if I'm breaking up, I apologize. You know, there was a point the first 2 weeks when all this hit, I think the stress level was pretty high for all people that I was conversing with, business members, my own family, and my kids wanted to throw in the towel and say, oh, school's over, summer has started. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know what was going on because we were, throughout the school year, they're good students. We're trusting that they're communicating with their teachers, and they're in high school, you know, like, you know, you gotta do things on your own, right? It's kind of our attitude. Well, we found out that they had kind of thrown in the towel. So I guess my point is, us as parents, we're home. We got to step up to the plate and help these teachers manage some of this. I'm not saying do their work for them. I'm saying, hey, every night, get onto Google Classroom and spend the 5 minutes, check and make sure your kid is staying engaged. And, you know, we heard many times, it's optional, it's optional. You know what we said? No, it's not. It might be optional in your eyes, but in this household, it is not optional. You're going to sit and do it. Mm-hmm. And they sit and do it. So, you know, you have to keep them engaged. I agree with you. We're choosing to stay engaged, and that's more of a personal thing. So, you know, we have to, that's helping the community, right? We're helping you as a school district by having the empathy that you talked about. And you're doing the best to help us as parents, as partners, as, you know, helping the community at large. So, okay, I'm done rambling. So, Emmeline, do you have any more questions? Or do you have any questions, I should say?
I'm a little curious if you guys have thought through the transportation aspect.
In regards to?
Sorry, Katie, I can't hear. As far as bus transportation, what that's going to look like, you know, potentially if we go back. You know, that's a lot of kids on one bus.
Yep. Yeah.
And what that might end up looking like.
I think to answer that question, it's going to be dependent on what school looks like. You know, is it in chunks? Is it chunks of students coming to school on any given one day? Is it everybody at school at the same time? If it's everybody at school at the same time, because that's the direction the state is going, then we'll probably start with everybody at school at the same time, including the buses. And parents will have to make a decision. Do I put my child on the bus, or do I drive them and drop them off, right? We all know what it's like to drop kids off in the morning. Not very fun. But the fact is that we'll have to look at what is the direction that we're taking and what is the direction that we're being given by the Michigan Department of Education and the state. If it's in chunks, then we'll probably have to bus in chunks, right? So how do we keep that social distancing in play? Those are all the unanswered. It's really difficult to say that we're going to be able to bus students any different than we do now efficiently, right? And now talk about efficiently. How do you create a new transportation process that costs more money when we're hearing from the state of Michigan that we're going to be losing money per pupil? Some of you might know this. I'll try to show this. Back in March of 2019, I shared the graph for how schools are funded. And you might remember seeing something like this, a little pie graph. And basically, you have to realize that schools and the school aid fund is funded 45% from sales tax, 22% from income tax, 7% from the lottery. The proceeds after payouts come from the lottery. Some people think the lottery pays for all of public education, and it's 7% of the school aid fund. Casino taxes, casinos have lost a ton of money. Probably the chamber knows that. Just casinos are making nothing. Part of that is casino and so on and so forth. So we're being told that we will lose up to $1,000 per child when the new budget comes out. So $1,000 per child times 5,500 students. You can do the math real quickly in your head. That's a lot of money that we won't have and still have to manage schools the way we manage schools. So we're already in the process of developing 3 different budgets. Schools have to present their budget and adopt their budget by June 30th. The state doesn't have to give us our numbers until October. So we'll do our best to limit what we can limit and then try to go from there. That means that we did change the bond. The bond was slated to go on May 5th of this year. We last night at the Board of Education did call the election for August 4th. That will be more important than ever before because in order to buy buses, in order to buy the technology, all the things that we've talked about that are embedded in this bond, $1 million a year for technology and technology upgrades that we won't have, especially if we get hit for $250, $500, $750, $1,000 per child, that is just not in the school aid fund because people aren't buying, people aren't spending, right? People aren't working. So where's that money going to come from? So we understand all that. And so it goes back to your question, how are we going to bus and how are we going to bus differently? And how do we do that efficiently without more cost and without more buses and without more drivers? Don't know.
It was a perfect
maybe more
segue
people.
into my question about how you were going to apply the money in the bond, maybe possibly to some of these new things you're going to have to implement.
Yeah, and I think the bond has built in it technology costs, which we obviously is going to be a big one. The federal government did just release the CARES Act dollars. The CARES Act dollars are based on free and reduced populations in school districts. So when you look at how much money did the district receive from the federal government to help with this COVID crisis and online learning, our district received a little over $99,000. We'll spend that on technology. Other districts next door, for instance, their free and reduced populations generated them over $400,000. So is $99,000 a ton of money? It's not a ton of money. We just passed a resolution last night to order 756 Chromebooks at $159,000. So will that $99,000 pay that whole bill? No, but we have to do it. So this bond does have built in it those technology costs that we're going to need. The other thing is that if you provide technology for students, you also have to provide the internet access. And one of the issues that we have in Hartland is 11.5% of the parents that we surveyed said they don't have internet access. Well, for us to provide internet access to every family, currently we're not doing that in our plan. But come fall, if we had to gear up and more rigorous because we have to have social distancing, how do we provide that internet service to our parents and our families at a cost, right? So we'll have to figure out a way to do that. So all of that is thought process. The bond is designed to relieve the general fund so that we can use general fund to do these things like provide internet service for families. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Yeah, you talk about, you keep saying, waiting to hear from the state, waiting to hear from the state. Do you feel like, and I know you don't have the answer, Chuck, but do you feel like is it going to be July 1st, July 15th? And do you feel like the school district is going to scramble a little bit? I hate to kind of be a little pessimistic, but in coming up with the plan and the communication for starting school when we're supposed to start school?
I do not feel like we're going to scramble because we're already putting our plans on paper. We're already thinking about that. We're already, we have to think ahead. In most school years, come January, we're already out of the year. We're already thinking about the next fall, right? Like come January, I'm already planning for the next year. So we're already planning for what that will look like. We're talking with our key stakeholders here in the district, running things by each other, capturing it on paper. So we'll have a good plan. I think the scramble, and hopefully we have some direction so it's not a scramble, is when we have to release that plan. But there's no sense in releasing any kind of plan now that could totally change, come August 1st.
And another question that kind of segues into another question that came in. If the school is forced to go online, I don't know if forced is really a good word, but forced to go online or in part, have you considered a Zoom class to show parents how to help with online courses and learning? That's a good question. Not all of us are aware of the tools that are actually available already, or online tutoring for those students who need more quote unquote hands-on help with material that is above the parent's level.
That's a great suggestion. So I just wrote that down. So how could
That was Carrie Jellison, just so you know.
Go. So good job,
give
Carrie.
her kudos.
Tell her I wrote that down, or Carrie, I wrote that down, and I think that's a great suggestion. As we're thinking about what we do for our staff, what do we offer our parents in regards to that developmental piece? So good thought.
Yeah, and speaking of being forced to go online, here at the chamber, we were forced out of our comfort zone. I'm a very people person, and forced to wrap my arms around technology and make it work for me and adapt it for what I needed it to do. So I think, and in talking to a couple of technology experts, they are predicting that, it's just the way it's going to be from here on out, is people are getting comfortable using technology and seeing that it has value and it can work, and it works differently for everybody. So I think there is opportunity there with technology.
I think the concern I have, and I express this concern with our legislators on Friday, and that is, right now you got platforms like Zoom that are saying it's free, for everybody, and you have internet providers saying, hey, we'll provide you free or very discounted internet so that it helps you through this process. The problem is, eventually, they're going to want their dollars. They're going to want their cut, right? They're going to want something for that service. And that does concern me, because we might have people that have this capability right now, but might not have it come September or come, January of next year. So I think that is a concern that I have, is we can have all the plans in the world, but if one little thing changes and all of a sudden Zoom becomes a cost, and for instance, for us to use a platform like, what was the third, Seesaw, right? So for us to use a platform like Seesaw at our K2, there's a cost. It's not free, right? Right now it is, people are using it, but the cost of Seesaw, I believe, is $5 per student, So what does that look like if you go to Seesaw? And you have to start paying for it. And getting hit with reductions in revenue at the same time. So those are our concerns that we have to be thinking about on a regular basis.
Yeah, there was a comment in chat about Zoom is free right now. It's free for the basic. I will tell you, we had to invest in Zoom if we wanted more than 100 participants, and it does not include webinars. Like this is not free with Zoom webinar. So Zoom's making a killing is all I gotta say. But yeah, things to consider, right? And we're all feeling it, right? We have to invest in technology, and then you have no revenue coming in.
Right.
There was just a little suggestion. It's kind of not really a deep question, but can we have regular discussions like this throughout the next several months? If you guys are still game, I would love to do this again, and maybe end of June, beginning of July, because I don't know about you, but I feel like 3 days feels like 2 weeks because things change so quickly, right? So if there is a community need, I would be more than happy to host another one of these, and we can kind of pick up where we left off and have another discussion if you're game.
Michelle?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm game as well. I will say this, for whatever reason, sometimes people don't feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling me or emailing me and leaving their phone number. But in all seriousness, I really try to be a very transparent superintendent. I think, for whoever knows me, I'll give you the best answer I can. And I always preface it with, you may not like the answer that I gave you, but I'll do the best I can to give you that answer. Feel free to email me at chuckhughes@heartlandschools.us or give me a call. I'll give you my direct number, 810-626-2110. Call me, ask me a question. I have no issues with just sitting down with you and trying to make sure that you understand the answer to your question from the perspective that we're taking as a school district. So feel free to do that. Don't be afraid of me. I promise I won't bite.
You're a big teddy bear.
Well, I try to be. I got big shoulders too, so you can't hurt my feelings. Tell me the way it is.
Here's another question came in, Chuck. This person said, I was under the impression that part of the budget deal last year, a bill was passed and signed that required the budget to be done by July 1st each year, House Bill 4574 that was signed by the governor. Won't this help schools a little?
No, not this year, because we've been told all bets are off on that, right? That bill was signed as part of a negotiated deal with the governor to add the line item issues back, right? Remember, she vetoed some line items in the budget. And so that was negotiated by the Senate and the House, that if she put money back into those line items, that they would have the budget. She has already presented her budget. And this is not a political statement on my part. Please understand that. The governor already presented her budget. Her budget gave schools, recommended schools get, I believe, a $240 to $245 increase per student. Well, that's not going to happen. So she now has to go back and re-present a budget. The 15th of this week, is that Friday? Yeah, Friday, There's a statewide revenue conference. They'll look at the numbers from Treasury and see how bad is it. And so we won't have a budget, but we'll know it is really bad, and we can expect a real decrease in revenue. Then the governor has to develop the budget again. She's already done it, but now this has changed that. Then she has to send it to the House and the Senate. They have to negotiate. So July 1st is what we've been told is July 1st is not realistic. It's just not going to happen. So in most years, the state can wait until October because they have to have their budget done in October, their fiscal year. Our fiscal year and the state fiscal year are different. And that's the unfortunate part of public education. Back in 2011, 2012, we got hit with a $470 deduct in the fall, after we already built our budgets. And we just recovered from that 2 years ago. So if you've ever listened to our story, if you've listened to our bond story, you came and you listened to our story in Hartland and why all this makes an impact. $1 million this year is $2 million next year, $3 million, right? Like that just keeps generating itself over and over. And that's a lot of money. And that's our biggest concern with how things are done in the state of Michigan for funding schools, is that we continue to be behind. We continue to be behind. And some people would say, well, you've got plenty of money. And I would argue we do pretty well with the dollars we get, considering we're at the lowest funding mechanism, and we never know what we're getting from year to year.
Yeah, it seems crazy about the budget, how you have to have your budget, especially this year. I mean, what a challenge with your budget and then the state's budget in the fall.
Yep. So if we adopt a budget in June at $750 less per student, and we think, okay, we've adopted a $750 per student budget minus, and all of a sudden the state comes back and says, well, it's $1,000. Good luck, right? Or what if the state budget comes back and says, okay, it's only 500? Well, we can always amend along the way. But remember, we've planned, we've hired teachers, we've hired employees, we've bought things because school started. And yet we're being told in October, here's your budget.
Yeah,
So,
crazy.
yep.
You know, just one other little thing. Do you think, this was a question that came in, but will changes in the education community cause a progression towards year-round school? Would you ever think that? Would you ever?
I don't think that that's on our radar at all in Hartland. I can tell you honestly, I've never thought that that's where we're going to go. I'm a traditionalist unless there's a real reason to change. You know, we don't believe in silver bullets. And so Hartland and our way of doing things, very thoughtful and deliberate. There has to be a real reason to go to a year-round type of school system. I don't think that our community is ready for that. And I certainly haven't had very many people say we should be looking at year-round. So I would say right now, it's not even on our radar.
And financially, that would be such a burden, wouldn't it, Chuck?
I don't know the numbers on that, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously you'd have to bus all the time. So you do have a savings in gas and bus costs when you're not in school. You know, this year alone, people might know that the governor closed schools, and the governor said, however, if you want your foundation allowance, you have to keep people employed. I don't know if you know that, but keeping our foundation allowance whole meant making sure we kept people employed. So we didn't lay anybody off. We didn't put anybody out here. And that came with a cost factor. And we figured that cost factor, not quite $1 million, to keep everybody employed, especially in revenue generating programs and trying to keep people employed. Well, the good thing is that we've had savings, right? We haven't had gas costs. We've had a lot of savings along the way that really ended up costing us very little to keep everybody employed. But what will that look like next year if we're down the same road? It probably is going to look a little different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I really, and then work my hour, so I did just, you know, nurse. You guys are a quiet bunch. Michelle?
Oh, I'm sorry. You broke up on me.
Oh, sorry. We're getting ready to wrap up, and I didn't know if you had any last, you know, comments or anything you wanted to share before we kind of end our call today.
Well, I just want to thank you for having me, and I'm hopeful, and I hope our community remains hopeful that we'll be able to get back in the business of truly educating our students like we believe in, face-to-face instruction in a classroom, which also means that Hartland Community Ed can support that through all of our programming that we do. So kind of honoring our mission to enrich lives is what we're hoping to get back at. And it's all the way from the baby room at the daycare to our senior center in our building that we share, Katie. So just remain hopeful, and I think we'll get there.
Thank you, Michelle.
And I
appreciate your time today.
I'd like to say, one, thank you to our community. Really been extremely supportive. I've watched social media. I've seen what's out there. I've been very impressed with our community and the reaction to what we're trying to accomplish. Our staff has been fantastic. I mean, absolutely awesome. So I thank them for hanging in there with us and trying to figure this all out. And lastly, I would just want to say congratulations to our class of 2020. A great class, so much promise. I'm sorry that it was so short, but go back. I tweeted a while ago, I think, saying, you know, as young people, we never think about when our parents are saying, enjoy the time, it's going to go by quick, right? I remember when my boys were seniors, and I'm like, you know, your senior year is going to be over just a snap of a finger, and here it was for them. So again, congratulations to you. We're still working on something to recognize you, and we'll give you more details as it comes. And thank you, Katie. Thank you, Emma, for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Emmeline, for joining us today. I appreciate your time. Chuck, as always, very insightful. And I do want to share, so thank you again. Thank you. I know I say thank you a lot. I do want to share with everyone, this is recorded, and with Michelle and Chuck's permission, I have your permission to go ahead and post this video. Do I have your permission?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll put it on our YouTube channel. We'll share it on Heartland Living. We can share it. I'll share with the schools if they want to share. So those of you that missed out can, listen in on all this good information that you shared today. So with that, I hope you both have, or all three of you have a great day, and everyone out there have a great day. The sun's out. So sun's out, guns out, get out there. So thanks again, everybody. So I appreciate your time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.